I've never been the kind of guy to expect the worst. I mean, sure, everyone has their moments of doubt, but I always believed my marriage was solid. We'd been together for over a decade. I trusted her. Her name's Lisa, beautiful, smart, and she always had this way of making me feel like I was the most important person in the world. Until that night. It started with a simple email. I was sitting on the couch after work, flicking through my phone, when I saw the bill come through on my email from the hotel chain. I didn't think much of it at first, but then I noticed something strange. There was a charge of nearly $600, and it was marked as suite reservation, plus some extras, champagne, chocolates, late checkout. Nothing unusual in itself except for one tiny detail that made my stomach churn: the date. The bill was for a night I'd never expected her to be away. She was supposed to be at a conference, a quick trip for work. But this bill was from a hotel downtown, a place she never mentioned, in a city she's never visited for work. I looked closer. The date. The night she was supposed to be at the conference. The hotel was luxurious, a high-rise with a view I'd only seen in magazines. My palms went cold. My blood thickened. I could feel my jaw tight. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I couldn't ignore the evidence staring back at me. I called her right then. The phone rang twice before she picked up, her voice light and cheerful. "Hey babe, everything okay?" I kept my voice steady, but inside my mind was racing. "Lisa, I saw the hotel bill from last night. Care to explain?" Silence on the other end. Then she coughed and I could hear her trying to compose herself. "It's nothing, just a work thing, some late meetings, you know how those go." I gritted my teeth. "Really? Because I see you checked into a suite at the Grand Plaza. You didn't mention this trip at all." My voice was sharper, colder. Was this part of the conference? More silence. Then she stammered, "It was just a mistake. I was supposed to be at the hotel for some reason, but I didn't think it mattered. It wasn't supposed to be anything serious." That's when the confusion and anger started bubbling inside me. I felt a twisting in my gut, like a knot I couldn't undo. How could she hide this from me? Why lie? I wanted to believe her at first, to just wave it off as a misunderstanding, but the evidence made that impossible. My mind kept circling around the image of her in that fancy hotel room with someone else. I remember feeling a sudden rush of heat in my face, like my blood had turned to fire. I told her to call me back when she got home, but I couldn't focus on anything else after that. My hand was trembling as I put the phone down. I stared at the bill, then at the empty doorway where she'd walk in that evening. I was trying to piece it all together, but the pieces felt jagged and wrong. That's when I realized this was more than just a mistake. It was a betrayal, a crack I couldn't ignore. The more I thought about it, the more I saw red. How could I have missed the signs? The late nights, the excuses, they all seemed so hollow now. I'd been blind. She had been hiding something, and I didn't know what to believe anymore. I knew I had to plan my next move. I couldn't just confront her blindly. I needed to find out how deep this went, what else she might be hiding. But one thing was certain: I wasn't going to let this slide. Not without a fight. As I sat there staring at that damn hotel bill, I realized that everything I thought I knew about her and about us was now questionable. I was angry, betrayed, and hurt. But more than anything, I was determined to find out the truth. And if that meant playing her game for a little while longer, so be it. I just didn't realize how far I was willing to go until I started crafting my plan. And trust me, it was going to be satisfying. But first, I needed to get more evidence. I had to be sure. And I had to be smart. Because once I stepped into this game, there was no turning back. The next few days were a whirlwind of thoughts and questions. I couldn't focus on anything else. Every time I tried to work, my mind kept circling back to that hotel bill. My stomach felt like it was twisting itself into knots. I kept replaying that night in my head, her voice on the phone, the way her words sounded rehearsed, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. I needed more proof. I couldn't just sit around and stew while she was out there living some double life. I had to dig deeper, find out what she was hiding, and figure out how to catch her in the act, or at least catch her in a lie big enough to shut her down. That's when I started noticing little things. Her phone was more guarded than usual. She'd hide it when I came near, and her messages seemed more vague. I could tell she was trying to cover her tracks. I didn't need much more to confirm I was onto something. One afternoon, I got into her email account, easy enough with her password saved on her laptop. I didn't feel good about it, but I couldn't ignore what I might find. And I found it. A string of messages with some guy named Mark, flirty, suggestive, and way too familiar. They'd been chatting for weeks, planning meetups, even joking about secret trips. My stomach dropped. The details were clear she'd been seeing him, probably even more than just that one night. I scrolled through the messages, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. How could I have missed this? How could I have been so blind? Her phone buzzed. I quickly closed the laptop and shoved it aside, pretending I hadn't seen anything. She walked in, fresh from work, her face trying to look normal, but her eyes darted around. I could see the guilt. "Hey," she said casually, shrugging off her coat. "What are you doing?" "Just checking some emails," I said, voice tight. "Anything interesting?" She hesitated. "Just work stuff, nothing important." I didn't push her further, but the truth was clear. She'd been hiding her dirty little secrets. I knew I couldn't confront her yet. I needed a plan, something airtight, something that would make her realize she'd crossed a line she couldn't come back from. That night I sat in the dark, replaying everything I'd found. The hotel bill, the chat messages, her nervousness when I brought up the bill. It all added up. I was angry, yes, but also cold. Calm. I had to be smart. If I was going to do this, I had to do it right. I decided I'd follow her next time she went out. I'd get a clear picture of where she was, who she was with. I was planning to catch her red-handed, or at least catch her in the act of lying. I had to make her believe she was safe, but I'd be watching her every step. And while I was at it, I'd craft my revenge, not just some petty yelling, but something that would hit her where it hurt, something that would make her realize the gravity of her betrayal. I wanted to make her feel the same gut-wrenching shock I felt when I saw that bill. I knew this was just the beginning. The next step was to see her in her lie, to gather enough proof for the confrontation I'd be planning. Because once I had that, there was no turning back. And I was ready for it. I could feel adrenaline prickling in my veins. It was only a matter of time before the truth spilled out, and I was going to be the one holding the hammer. The following evening I followed her. I didn't want to make a scene or blow my cover too early. I parked a few blocks away, watching her leave our house. She looked casual, just a quick trip, maybe an hour or two. I kept my distance, staying tucked behind trees and parked cars, hidden but alert. She got into her car and I trailed behind at a safe distance. The drive took her downtown, toward that same posh hotel, the Grand Plaza. My stomach clenched as I watched her walk inside, her heels clicking on the marble floor. I kept my eye on the entrance, feeling my palms sweat and my heart pounding in my chest. I parked and waited nearby, pretending to check my phone. It wasn't long before she appeared with a guy I didn't recognize. Tall, confident, with a crooked grin. They matched each other perfectly, like they belonged together in some secret world I'd never been allowed into. They disappeared into the hotel and I stayed in the shadows, watching through the glass as they entered a suite. The door shut behind them. My mind raced. This was it. All the doubt, all the suspicion, solidified into undeniable proof. I didn't want to rush. I'd been planning this moment for days, but part of me felt sick. The betrayal was worse than I imagined. I felt the heat of anger swell in my chest, but I kept my face blank. No sudden moves. I snapped a few pictures with my phone, nothing explicit, just enough to prove she was there with him. I didn't want to look like I was spying. I just wanted confirmation. When I was done, I slowly backed away, heart pounding so loudly I was sure she'd hear it through the thin walls. Driving back home, I couldn't keep the image out of my head, her laughing, leaning into him, the way her body language, a kind of ease that I'd never seen before. It hit me like a punch. That night, her in that room with him was real. She'd been lying the entire time, hiding her affair behind my back. Once I was home, I sat in the dark again, replaying it all. I needed to be precise. I couldn't just confront her blindly. I had the evidence now, and I knew what I had to do next. Next came the plan, something calculated, something that would expose her entirely. I wanted her to know I knew everything, but I also wanted her to feel the full weight of her betrayal. I decided I'd set a trap, a way to make her confess without me having to say a word. That night, I bought a small voice recorder. I'd hidden it somewhere she couldn't find it, maybe in her purse or her car. I was going to let her talk freely, unguarded, and capture her own words. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became that she'd been cheating for weeks. I was furious, but I kept my composure. I couldn't let her see my anger, not yet. I had to be patient, strategic. The next day I called her at work, pretending I was still angry but calm. "Lisa, I saw you last night. I know about the guy. I know about the hotel. Do you want to tell me what's really going on?" She hesitated, then sighed heavily. "It's not what you think. It's a mistake. It's over now." Over. I echoed, "I don't think so. I want the truth. I deserve that much." There was a long pause. Then she mumbled, "I was just confused. I didn't mean for it to go this far." That's when I knew I had her. Her words were shaky, her voice defeated. I'd caught her in her own web of lies. I'd set the trap, and now it was just a matter of waiting until she slipped up again. In my mind, I was already planning how I'd confront her face to face, how I'd make her understand what she'd done. This wasn't just about cheating, it was about betrayal. And I was going to make sure she paid for it. I looked at the evidence I'd gathered, the hotel photos, the chat screenshots, her shaky voice on the recorder. It was perfect. I knew what I was going to do next, and I could feel it. This was only the beginning of my revenge. I just had to wait for the right moment. And when that moment came, she'd realize she'd messed with the wrong man. The waiting was the hardest part. I kept my phone close, replaying everything I'd collected, trying to figure out the perfect moment to strike. I knew I had her trapped, but I did want to rush. I wanted her to think she was still in control, to believe she could keep lying to me. One afternoon, she came home from work looking tense and tired. I could see the strain in her shoulders, the way her eyes darted around. She knew I knew, but she was trying to keep her composure. I didn't say much, just let her stew. She tried to act normal at first, but the silence grew heavy. I finally broke it. "So, Lisa," I said, voice steady but cold, "how long has this been going on?" Her jaw clenched. "It's not what you think," she whispered, voice trembling. "It's just a mistake, I swear." I took a step closer. "A mistake? Do you realize how serious this is? You've been lying to me for weeks. I have the hotel bill, the messages, the recordings, all of it." Her eyes welled up with tears. "I didn't mean for it to get this far. I was just confused, and I didn't know how to tell you." I shook my head. My stomach felt like it was turning inside out. "No, Lisa. You didn't just get confused, you cheated with my boss during a business trip. How long has this been going on?" She looked away, trembling. "I don't know how it started, it just happened. I didn't want to hurt you. That did it." My fists clenched and I felt rage surge through me, but I kept my voice controlled. "You didn't want to hurt me, you're damn right it hurts. You lied, you betrayed everything we had." She collapsed onto the sofa, sobbing. "I'm sorry, I was stupid. I didn't think it would get so out of hand." "Sorry isn't enough," I snapped. "You're not just a little mistake. You've been unfaithful, not just once but multiple times. I've got everything I need to end this." Her sobs grew louder. "Please don't do this, just give me a chance to fix it. I'll do anything." I looked at her, feeling the cold resolve settle inside me. I'd already made up my mind, but I wanted her to see the consequences of her actions. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, opening the voice recorder app I'd hidden earlier. "You want to fix this?" I asked, voice low. "Then listen to yourself, because I recorded everything you said over the last few days. Every lie, every excuse, and I'm about to let everyone hear it." Her eyes widened in horror. "You wouldn't dare." "Oh, I dare," I said, tapping the record button. "Because this isn't just about me anymore. It's about respect, honesty, and whether I want to keep pretending I don't see what you really are." The room was silent except for her muffled crying and the faint hum of my phone recording her every word. I knew I had her cornered, and I felt a strange mixture of relief and disgust. I didn't want to hurt her, but I couldn't live with the deception anymore. This wasn't just about the infidelity, it was about my dignity. I decided then and there what I'd do next. I'd give her one last chance to come clean, to confess everything on her own. But I'd be ready. Ready to end this mess for good. That night I told her I was leaving her for good. Not because I wanted to punish her, I wanted to reclaim my respect. She begged, pleaded, crying like I'd never seen before, but I knew I couldn't go back, not after everything I'd found. I packed a bag that night, and before I left I handed her the phone with the recordings playing. "Here's the proof," I said coldly. "You can listen to it whenever you want, but I'm done. Don't contact me again." She looked at me, desperate, defeated. "Please don't do this." I took her hands, looked her in the eyes, and felt nothing but a hollow ache. "It's over," I said, voice firm. "You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. Goodbye." As I walked out that door, I felt a strange calm settle over me. I'd finally taken control. I'd done what I needed to do. This betrayal was the last straw. I realized something. Sometimes the only way to find peace is to walk away from what no longer serves you. And that's exactly what I was going to do. That day, I handed over the keys, closed the chapter, and finally left that toxic chapter behind. Because some betrayals cut too deep, and you can't keep pretending everything's okay. Sometimes, you just have to walk away and rebuild what's left. The days after I left her were some of the quietest I'd experienced in years, but also the loudest in my head. Every moment I was alone, everything I'd uncovered played back on repeat. Her tears, her lies, the secret trips. I could still see her in that hotel room, her face lit by that awful glow of betrayal. It was like I'd been living in a fog for so long, and now the haze had finally lifted, leaving only the raw, cold truth. I moved out, rented a small apartment nearby, and started piecing my life back together. It wasn't easy. Every morning I'd wake up with a heavy weight in my chest, a mixture of anger and loss. I'd catch myself staring at my phone, waiting for her to call and beg for forgiveness. But I knew that was pointless now. She'd burned that bridge, and honestly, I didn't want to cross it anymore. I kept thinking about what I'd do with the evidence I'd collected. The recordings, the photos, her messages, all of it. Part of me wanted to post everything online, let the world see her for what she really was. But I knew that wouldn't be right. I didn't want to destroy her reputation, at least not publicly. What I really wanted was to make her feel the chaos she'd inflicted on me, to see her realize the pain she'd caused. One evening, I sat in my new apartment, staring out the window. The city lights flickered below, a stark contrast to the darkness inside my mind. I knew I had to be strategic about how I exposed her. I didn't want a messy public disgrace, just enough to make her understand she'd lost everything she cared about. That's when I remembered her phone. I still had her passcode, and I'd kept the recordings on a secure drive. I thought about how to make her see, really see, what she'd done. And suddenly an idea clicked. I'd use her own words, her own voice confessing everything. No need for loud accusations or drama. Her own voice would do all the work. I planned a quiet but impactful way to reveal her betrayal. It was simple. I'd send her a message, just a short note saying I had something she needed to hear. When she clicked the link, it would play the recordings I'd made, her voice, admitting everything. That way, she'd hear herself and there'd be no denying the truth. The night I sent it, I watched from my phone as her face changed when she listened. The shock, the disbelief, the panic all laid bare. She tried to call me, but I didn't answer. Instead, I let her listen over and over until she understood. Her silence was deafening. In the days that followed, I kept my distance. No texts, no calls, but I knew she was hurting. I saw her in the office, saw her trying to pretend everything was fine. She was visibly shaken, and I could tell she realized her life had shifted forever. She'd lost her grip, and I wasn't going to be the one to pick her up. One afternoon, she approached me in the hallway, her eyes red-rimmed. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said quietly, almost pleading. I looked at her coldly. "You made your choice. I gave you a chance to tell the truth, and you chose to lie. That's on you now." She lowered her head, and I could see the shame breaking her. I didn't feel triumphant, just exhausted, but I knew I'd done what I needed to do. I'd taken back some control, even if it was just a small victory. That night I sat alone in my apartment, finally feeling some sense of closure. I realized I'd been holding on to her, onto the life I thought we had, for too long. Now I was finally free. Looking back, I'd say this: sometimes the only way to heal is to face the truth head-on. No matter how painful, no matter how much it hurts, because hiding from it only drags the pain out longer. And in the end, the truth, no matter how bitter, is what sets you free. I'm still healing, still figuring out who I am without her. But I know one thing for sure: I won't let betrayal define me. I'll rebuild, stronger and wiser. and I'll never ignore the red flags again. The months that followed were a blur of moving on and trying to forget. I threw myself into work, into friends, into rebuilding a sense of normalcy I thought I'd lost forever. Sometimes I'd catch myself thinking about her, about what I could have done differently, about the signs I missed. But I also knew that dwelling on the past wouldn't change anything. If anything, it only kept me tethered to that pain. One day I decided to take some decisive action, something to mark the end of it all, to truly close the chapter. I gathered all the evidence I'd collected, the hotel bill, the chat screenshots, the recordings, and I went to a lawyer. I wanted to make sure that I protected myself from any future legal or financial fallout. Honestly, I didn't think she'd try anything, but better safe than sorry. The lawyer listened carefully, then nodded. "You're doing the right thing," she said. "You've got solid proof and you're clearly making a clean break. I'll prepare the paperwork for divorce and we can get this started." That moment felt like a weight lifted. It was my way of saying, this part of my life is over. I handed over the papers, signed everything, and watched as the process began to unfold. No more secrets, no more lies, just a clear path forward. In the quiet of my new life, I realized I'd learned something important. Trust is fragile. People can surprise you in terrible ways, but what you do afterward matters more. You can either let betrayal consume you, or use it as a stepping stone to something better. I chose the latter. Looking back, I wish I could say I felt victorious or even relieved. Honestly, I felt mostly tired, exhausted from the emotional roller coaster, from the heartbreak, from the betrayal. But I also felt stronger, like I'd finally taken control of my life again. I learned to listen to my instincts and not ignore the small red flags. I saw the warning signs early, but I chose to ignore them, telling myself it was nothing, convincing myself I was overthinking. That's a mistake I won't make again. And here's the thing, I don't hate her. Not really. I'm angry, sure, betrayed, absolutely. But I also feel a strange sense of relief. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us are the ones that push us to become better versions of ourselves. I've come out of this a little wiser, a lot more cautious, more aware of what I need and what I won't tolerate. Now I focus on rebuilding, on finding happiness again. I've started dating, meeting new people who respect me and treat me well. It's still early days, but I'm slowly putting the pieces back together. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm moving forward, not just surviving. And to anyone reading this who's going through something similar, here's my advice. Trust your gut. Don't ignore the small red flags, even if they seem insignificant. Once you realize something's wrong, don't justify it away. Face it head on, gather your proof if you need to, and do what's best for you. Because at the end of the day, your happiness and your peace are what matter most. I handed over the keys, closed that chapter, and finally walked away. It was painful but necessary. And now I finally feel free to start again.